and your analytics is essential for any business that's trying to transform their marketing. That's why today we're going into the 5 metrics that are essential for the growth of your digital marketing. I'm Chris Carr, and this is Digital Marketing Masterclass episode 7. And today we are talking about data. But before we do that, let's try to subscribe. Let's click on the notification button. We want to try to bring as much value as possible. And we're also going to be trying to bring videos like this to you every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 2 o'clock. So let's dive in. Let's talk about those 5 metrics that are critical for your digital marketing. So first, what I want to do is I want to explain something that we call death by data. And what death by data essentially means is that a lot of times what we do is we get analysis paralysis. And what I mean by that is that we connect Google Analytics, we connect different software programs, and then all of a sudden we're collecting so much information that we don't know what are the metrics that actually matter. Now, there are a ton of blogs and there's a ton of videos that you can watch that are going to go through analytics, that are going to go through all these things to help you understand those. But the 5 metrics I want to talk about today deal with some of the numbers that we look at as a company that are sort of behind the scenes that really help us get the full landscape or the full picture of what's working and what's not. I believe that these are often ignored, and so what I want to do is talk about them and why they bring value. First off, let me tell you where we collect data from. We collect analytics information from a variety of different sources. I covered this in episode number 2, but the first one is Google Analytics. The second one is HubSpot. HubSpot allows us to be able to figure out not only how many visitors are coming to our website, but who they are by name, how they're engaging, how their leads scored. It allows us to set up marketing automation and measure all of the details at a personal level. Next, we have SEMrush. We use this in combination with Google Analytics. This gives us our macro information. It allows us to produce our monthly and quarterly reports, and it allows us to get a deep dive into SEO, social media, and a variety of other different approaches that we do in our unique process. Wistia is all of the analytics that we do to measure video. It allows us to find out when are people leaving early, who's watching the video by name. I can find out when they rewind. And they also have technology that allows your video to be captured in SEO a whole lot better than doing it simply out of YouTube. And then finally, TubeBuddy. We are investing this year into live streaming and specifically how to grow our YouTube channel. And TubeBuddy is a platform that allows us to know all the data that we're looking for before we get involved. It allows us to optimize our content and to do a lot of things right that we would have to use other pieces of software to do. So those are the platforms that we use. You don't have to use all of those, but I did want to kind of mention them so that if I'm mentioning data here and you're wondering where am I collecting it from, it's commonly from those platforms. So let's dive into some of the numbers here and some of the metrics that I was talking about earlier. I want to break them down one by one and not only say what it is, but then also why it brings value. So the first one is new and returning visitors. All right, so with new and returning visitors, obviously we have tons of clients that want so much traffic and they want their traffic to grow month over month, year over year, and they're right to do so. But my main point and my main objective is to not only drive new traffic, but to bring more qualified traffic. And one of the main reasons that I'm focusing on qualified traffic is that sometimes site visits can be a glamour number or a vanity number. If I'm getting the right message to the right client at the right time, we believe that it's going to affect sales and your volume and, just basically it's going to help you transform your business. But why I measure new and returning visitors is because I think it's almost 80% plus are the number of people that come to your website that are not in a position to buy. So where they're at is they're in the awareness stage or the consideration stage, but maybe not in the decision level stage. And yet a lot of the clients that I work with in the beginning think that if they're on their website, they're ready to buy, and that's just not so. So why I put so much energy in returning visitors is because what we do is we put, with HubSpot and other pieces of software, we put a piece of tracking code on their website, and then we monitor every single engagement that they do. I look at every page that they look at. I look at what videos they watch. I look at a variety of different things. But that could only be possible if they return back to the website, because on the first try, they often don't have that essential cookie or that tracking code on their website. So monitoring return visitors is a critical metric for us. All right. The next one that we're talking about here is client lifetime value. With client lifetime value, a lot of people that we work with are always talking about return on investment, and we're one of them. But one of the things that we try to always say is, hey, what is the lifetime value of a client? So if you spend $100,000 with our organization, right, and you only make $80,000 back in new revenue, you might say, you know what, that is a poor performing campaign, or that's not worth the energy, the effort, or even the expense. But what I'm trying to say is that if I make you $80,000 in revenue, but the lifetime value of your client is set up in a way that it says, hey, you know what, we have a client and we keep them for 5 years, it's $80,000 times 5. And so what happens here is that the value of the client, when you measure it across the lifetime value, is significantly higher than when you say, hey, I'm going to put out $100,000 this year and I want to get $200,000 in return, so in the same calendar year. So one of the things that's really, really important is to understand, hey, what are my products and services? What is the price and margin of my products and services? And then how long do those clients actually stay with us? Because when you know the lifetime value of your client, you're going to know the worth of your client. And when you know the worth of your client, that is how you can get more dependable ROI. All right, the next metric that we're looking at here are the ratio of visitor to leads to sales. And let me explain what I mean by that. When I work with a client, we develop a gap assessment. And a gap assessment essentially is your 3 to 5 year roadmap to scale your business and your sales. But what we often say is it's a numbers game. And what I mean by that is, let's say hypothetically you have to make $20 million in new revenue. What I do is I take that $20 million of revenue and I subtract where you're at right now. Let's say hypothetically you're at 10 million. So I got to get $10 million of new revenue to get to $20 million of revenue. If I know what $10 million is worth, I'm going to say, how many sales does it take to get to 10 million? All right. And once I know how many sales it takes to get to 10 million, I need to figure out how many leads does it take to get a sale. And once I know how many leads it takes to get a sale, I have to figure out how many visitors it takes to get a lead. And then ultimately, it's how many visitors does it take to get a sale. All right. So the three numbers are in ratio to one another so that I can figure out, if I work backwards, I can literally find out how much marketing essentially do I need to do to mathematically reach my sales targets. All right, decision level form submissions. With decision level form submissions, what I want to be able to do is, let me explain what I mean by decision level form submissions in a way that kind of fits that HubSpot vocab. When you have different forms, when you think of the buyer's journey, you have awareness, consideration, and decision level content. In the awareness stage, we're using what's called top of the funnel offers. These are downloadable pieces of material that you exchange for your name and your email address. And then middle of the funnel, which they call MOFU, which is a clever name, essentially is when you talk about the middle of the funnel, what I've done here is hopefully I'm nurturing them out of the awareness stage into the consideration level stage. All right. And so now they're more qualified. When they download content in the middle of the funnel, I know that they're more engaged and they might be ready for a sales call. And then finally, I get to the decision level stage. Ideally, it's to schedule an appointment, or it's schedule a consultation, or it's essentially saying, you know what, I want to buy, or at least I'm interested in buying. What we find a lot of the times is that when we develop SEO, when most clients, this is sort of what happens, is that they go and they develop an SEO campaign, and then they look in the analytics or the metrics later and they say, this is how much qualified traffic that I have. But one of the things that we do on the decision level is that we set up goals on the thank you pages of all of our decision level forms so that we can say, This is how much traffic we drove through SEO. This is how much traffic we drove through social media. And finally, it ultimately led to a form, a buy now form, a decision level form. We're able to say, you know what? This is how we measure conversion off of our lead generation and our lead nurturing. So a lot of times what we're doing is we're keeping these analytics isolated, and you're not able to find out, hey, what is the full buyer's journey and did it actually convert? So if you have decision level forms, you have decision level goal setting, and when you have decision level goal setting, you can essentially find the effectiveness of all of your marketing. Finally, we want to look at how many touch points does it get, how many touch points to get to your ideal sale. All right, so when you start to think about your ideal sale, what we do is we look at all the metrics of everybody who's bought from you in the past. Then what we do is we use a tool like HubSpot or other pieces of technology to figure out how many times did they engage with your brand, or what are the touch points with your brand. And so we might say, hey, to get this $100,000 sale, an individual must have come to our homepage, watched a video, spoken with a sales representative, gotten a proposal, and then became a client. Let's just say hypothetically those are the 5 touch points. When I know what the ideal number of touch points are, I can look at my entire database and say, you know what? These are the people that are probably at of a lead score of a 20 or a 30. They haven't exactly warmed up. Out of the 5 critical touch points, they probably only have 2 of the 5. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to nurture them through touch point 3, 4, and 5. Or I might say, you know what, I have a good portion of my database that have 4 touches. So what I can do from a pipeline perspective or from a sales perspective is know, hey, you know what, we're probably right on the cusp of something really great here because we have so many people that are so close to the pin, or so many potential clients so close to the pin. So when I've counted how many touch points it takes to actually become a sale, I can look at my database and understand the health of my database a whole lot better than just names and email addresses on a list somewhere and just guessing, you know what, we have some marketing, we have some names, some lists, and these are the hunches on whether they're going to close or not. All right. So there's a lot involved in measuring your touch points, but when you wrap that with really great technology, it makes that quest a whole lot easier. So in review, I know that I've been talking a lot. Let's go back and try to talk about what are the key takeaways from this video. The first takeaway is that you have to find metrics that are important to you and your organization. And what I mean by that is that I've shown you the 5 metrics that we believe are great for our clients, but that might be very different from you and for your story. And so if you're working with an agency or you have a CMO, taking some time to say, hey, what are the numbers that matter? That's going to be one of the most essential things that you do. Because if you've always done if you always do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you've always got. So it's essential to have that meeting early so that you can be measuring correctly. All right? We covered the 5 metrics that matter to us. What you should know is that we believe that the metrics that I just talked about are often very overlooked. So please rewind this video, talk about it with your team and say, hey, you know what? Of these 5 metrics, how many are we doing? Are we doing 2 of the 5, 3 of the 5? And how do we implement, the metrics or the approaches that we're not, measuring? And then finally, and this is the big one, make data-driven decisions. All right? So if you don't have analytics set up correctly, you haven't had those critical meetings to find out what metrics matter, you're ultimately going to probably be chasing new ideas, new hunches, new hacks, and you're probably going to be doing something that we call RAM, which is random acts of marketing. The alternative to that is to make your marketing based upon making data-driven decisions. Data-driven decisions essentially allows you to say, hey, these are the analytics we're collecting. We have 5 metrics that matter. What is the data telling us? And how do we shift? How do we pivot to double down on the things that are working and then add a little bit more strength to the things that might be weak? Okay? I hope you enjoyed this video. Our goal is to bring as much value as possible. We're going to be back every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 2 o'clock. Please subscribe. Please click on the notification bell, and we will see you next time.